Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Professional Females Podcast. We hope that you enjoy today's guest. I'm your host, Emily Sisneros, and this guest today is by far and away my favorite podcast guest ever. It is my husband, Jason Sisneros, who not only is
I
amazing
paid you
because
to say that. I paid you to
he
say that.
he did.
With
He
the
paid
ring on.
me to say it. But in all honesty, separate from his paying me to say it, he is a man of many talents. Not only do I have so much joy by working with them, he is my business partner in many businesses. We actually have our own separate couples in business podcast that we throw out through the Built to Exit podcast on YouTube. So you can always find those episodes there where we share kind of the dynamics of being in business together as a married couple. But he's also just a phenomenal, I cannot tell you how much I love just listening to him talk on the phone with other business owners when I'm watching him train business owners. He trains business owners constantly. He is on some amazing phone calls, like deal making phone calls, high powered people. But he keeps his integrity through and through. He keeps his joy through and through. And it's just, I'm always in awe watching him. And what I love the most about him is that he chooses joy in every situation. Most people think that they can't choose joy, that joy is dependent on the situation that they're in. Well, Jason Sisneros is the person that will prove that to be an incorrect thought process. You can choose joy. I think that's a biblical foundation. I think, Jason, you are one of the only people that I've ever met that there's a handful of people that live that way. You are one of them. And what I love about that is that it ties so nicely into today's topic, which is culture. So speaking of joy, let's talk today about company culture and why it is so important for business owners. Even if you are a one-man band or a one-woman band, company culture is something you set into the foundation of your business from the start, and everything else flows beautifully from there. So, Jason,
Well, I'm going to
thank you
have to
so
take
much.
you with me wherever I go to do my intros from now on. Love you.
You're welcome. I want to start off by reading a post that we have launching this week. If you follow us on social media, you will see it after this episode is launched. But I wanted to share kind of the caption around it. And that is one of the greatest gifts that business ownership brings is that it teaches you to level up your reactions, responses, emotions, and behaviors in any given situation. You don't have the luxury of being able to respond with the first thing that comes to mind. You are responsible now for the welfare and well-being of your customers and employees. And as the head of your organization, your job is to ensure that you are implementing a culture of joy, transparency, honesty, and going over and above for one another. I cannot overstate this enough. If the culture in your business is one of gossip, malignment, laziness, not going over and above for your customers, not going over and above for your colleagues, then you, as the business owner, are to blame for that. You are responsible to train your employees and set the tone for your organization. You are responsible to implement corrective measures if those go astray, if there are poor attitudes that are creeping up or behaviors that are misaligned from your company's culture. And yes, this still applies even if you are a one-person company. The foundation starts there, and you are responsible for how you show up each and every day. If you can't do it when it's only you in the business, then how do you expect to implement it when your business grows? So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my husband, my business partner, the man, the myth, the legend, as he calls himself, your humble co-host, Jason Sisneros.
Such a great introduction. I love the subject, because culture, there's really four pillars that I have coached and been coached on it. I built my own businesses and then sold them, and along the way we built a consulting firm, and we've helped hundreds of people. You and I have bought businesses together. We've merged companies. And this idea of culture and the idea behind it is, and I want to touch 2 points here, but this culture is one of those dominoes. We've all seen dominoes, and you hit one, and somebody spends hundreds and hundreds of hours putting them up one by one by one by one. Then they hit one and it turns into this beautiful, you know, design or something like that. And that's how your business can be if you're setting the dominoes up in a design that is meant to be beautiful. The design that's meant to be beautiful in your business is that you are building to exit. Okay. That's the beautiful design. And what that exit looks like and when it happens, that is completely unique to you, the viewer, the individual that's watching this. Your vision might be paid off house, paid off car, little shack on the beach, and enough money to come in to make sure that you can get some swimming trunks once or twice a year and feed yourself, right? That might be one version. Another version might be I want to have a big house in Beverly Hills and a private jet and a it doesn't matter. That is your outcome. That matters deeply to you, and that is your design. However, that's not where most people start with their business. They start going, I need to pay the rent, I need to open a business, and then someday, somehow, it's eventually going to be making me a ton of money, or I'm going to be able to sell it to somebody. Though both of those likelihoods, I'll tell you, 95% of companies don't see their 10th birthday, and 7%, less than 7% of companies that are put on the market ever sell. Okay. So it's not on accident. I can tell you the 5% that does stay in business to their 10th birthday and the 7% that do sell, they are executing on a pattern that exists for you to be able to build a company to be able to exit. That's what you want to search. You don't want to be searching and, and going to people that are the 95 percenters, and you don't want to go to the 93 percenters. You want to go to the 7 percenters and the 5 percenters so that you get your information. This subject called culture is one of the first dominoes that you have to set up that when you hit it turns into your beautiful design. And it has to be set up consciously. In other words, how do I want everybody that interacts with my brand? How do I want them to feel? What space do I want to take up in their head? CBS, one of your company that you started from the ground up all by yourself and built it into the number one consulting firm in all of cannabis. That's a huge piece of that was your culture. You determined and decided ahead of time what your culture was going to be, how you were going to treat customers. That's falling in love with their outcome. How you were going to treat employees as you started to stack them up, as you started to acquire employees. When you started and defined that, you did it prior to having 25, 30 employees like you have today. You started with just yourself. And so you did that consciously. Most people don't. And what we drag into our business, which is a business is just nothing but a collection of people, we drag in our unconscious, which may be enthusiastic. We might have a good personality, but we also drag into it unconsciously our fears, our belief about money, our treatment of people, how much we're going to work, how much we're not going to work. Are we lazy? Are we, but all of those things, if you don't flush them out in the beginning, they will infect your culture because one way or the other, whether you do it on purpose or you do it on accident, you have a culture. That culture is producing the results that you see right now.
I absolutely love what you just said, that whether you do it on purpose or by accident, you are creating a company culture. And that is, if that needs to be printed out, put in a picture frame, and put on every business owner's wall, because people tend to put this on the back burner because they're usually starting as a one-man show or one-woman show, and then suddenly they have to start bringing in people to fulfill operations, because if they make sales, you have to fulfill on those promises you've made, fulfill on those contracts, and then you have to make those sales. And then suddenly you look up and you've got a staff. Even if it's one person, it might suddenly become 3 or 5 or 10, and then suddenly you realize you may have hired them just chaotically. I've done that. That's a mistake. Don't do it. You may have hired them without properly interviewing them with company culture in mind, only on the specific role you may or may not have identified for them. Don't do that. I've done that. That's a mistake. And you may just totally forget how you show up in your business. Don't do that. I have done that. That's also a mistake. And the purpose of this podcast, Jason, is just sharing a lot of the things that I have paid for in terms of learning lessons in time, in money, and heartache, and tears, and stress. And so that the women listening to this show can take these tools and then, or men listening to the show can take these tools and implement them into their businesses the correct way the first time so they don't have to pay that same entry fee into the lesson, right? And I think what you said is so vital and so important. I know we keep these podcast episodes fairly short, so we'll wrap it here. But Jason, if you have any closing words, any closing thoughts about creating a company culture that is not toxic, that is pervasive in a way that emanates joy, or the way you shared about the domino effect. The dominoes, when they fall, they can fall chaotically and stop short of hitting that next domino, right? And then you failed in your mission of creating this beautiful design, like you said. Or they can fall in such a sequence that the outpouring of that fall is this design that spreads across the whole floor, and it affects positively every other colleague that every employee is working with, every customer you touch, everything you do in terms of growing and scaling your business for whatever exit you design. So if you have any parting words to kind of wrap up this episode, we would love to hear them.
Yeah, it's, you and I had this conversation earlier today where, the idea behind culture, by the people that are out there that are pitching and coaching, coaching stuff and gurus, and they're trying to get in your pocket. They make this idea of culture very complex to make you feel stupid so that you'll hire them and come in and tell you something that I'm going to tell you for absolutely free right now, which is culture is really the act of falling in love with your employee. I mean, it's really that simple. We teach, in the B2X system, we teach fall in love with the outcome of your target audience, your client, fall in love with the outcomes of your employees, and whatever it is that you have for your end game will naturally come out of serving those two groups of people. And so a lot of people, when we get into this idea of culture, it really does come down to just falling in love with your people's outcome. And the only three types of people. So there's number one. That covers a multitude of sins, takes the complexity out of building culture. Just I love them. What if I was working for me? What would I do? How would I treat me? How blah blah blah. That takes a lot of complexity out of it. And secondarily, it's like, well, how do I know how long to keep people? How do I know who to hire? And there's three words that really have helped. And how many businesses I've owned. And at one point in time, I had 6,800 employees that, and the ones there's three words that really define when it's time to part ways. Most of the people that have come across me and worked for me will tell you, I loved them. I really deeply cared about my people. And then there's the people that complain, because you're always going to have them. And there was three real consistent words that I could apply to every single one that didn't like working with my team, with my companies, etc. And it was three words: they were stealing from us, they were lazy, or they were mean spirited. And so if you can look through as you're onboarding and just see if those three indicators are present in past history. Obviously, stealing would be on a criminal record or whatever. They'll try to hide that. But there is a form of stealing where somebody works for somebody and they're like, hey, I learned a bunch of stuff. I'm going to take their stuff and I'm going to go start my own business, or I'm going to take that's their intellectual property and go over to another business, bring it. That's theft to me. Stealing people's IP. But lazy, that's pretty easy to identify very quickly. They have what they call boundaries around when they're going to come to work and when they're going to leave, and how hard they're going to work while they're there, how much they're looking at social media, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's just the mean spirited, and you can't hide that for very long. If somebody's mean spirited and you have a culture of caring, service, loving, Mean spirited is going to do terrible things to that and to you and to that relationship, and cause all kinds of problems that doesn't need to be there in the first place. So that's what I would leave people with, is to, vet people. It's works for in life in general. You and I do this with people that we surround ourselves with. Are they lazy? Are they trying to steal from us? And are they spirited? They don't hang out with us very long. So that's what I would say and take away.
I love that. And I would even, add a subsection to mean spirited, because I think mean spirited is the perfect encapsulation of what I'm going to say. There's mean spirited, and then there's negative Nancy's, which no knock on Nancy's, because there's Nancy's in my life that I absolutely love that are not negative. But negative people who are consistently, their auto response to anything they are assigned to do as an employee or staff member, their response to their interaction with the client when they come to you as their manager or their boss is negativity about that client interaction. That type of person, in my opinion, is toxic to a company. Anyone who is that way, it's hard to fix it because it's probably pervasive in their personal life. It can be fixed. There are situations where you can nip that in the bud very quickly, and then they can correct course, and you might have to do it a few times, but it might take that conversation of, hey, this is probably an unconscious response for you, but it doesn't work in my business. Because it's a great reminder for staff that most service businesses, your job is to solve the problem of the customer, right? So if the customer's coming to you with an issue, if they're a relatively, especially in our field, we help companies build for exit, and when they come to us, they're usually struggling because they haven't set their businesses up for success, which means that first good bit of the relationship, we are unraveling and untangling messes. So we could either look at that situation and say, these clients are such a mess, I can't stand it, blah blah blah. I do not allow my staff to come to me with those types of things, those types of that bit of feedback, because we wouldn't be hired if these clients of ours were in a good position. Our job is to clean up the mess and then to help them thrive. It's again about caring, falling in love with the outcome of our employees and also our clients. But if the employees are constantly in that negative state, that negative feedback loop, that is something I get rid of from a business very quickly.
Well, our job, as business owners, and I can't remember, this is not my original thought process, but I picked it up somewhere. I don't know who attribution to. But our job as business owners is to make champions better, not to make mediocre people suck less. Right. And so don't hire mediocre people in the first place. Find champions, right? Champions that hold your, the core beliefs, not think exactly alike, not have exactly the same talents, where you're going to like them, but hire people that you respect, people that are champions already, and your system, your process, your business model is going to make them better and reward them better than anybody else in the marketplace. So that's what I would say.
Love it. That's awesome. Thank you, Jason, so much for showing up today. Of course, I'll see you at breakfast. But
I'll see. Yeah, see if that check. We'll see if that check clears for having me on as a guest.
yeah, that's right. Um, yes. So thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. We hope you got value from this. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you're watching this podcast episode if you found value in it, and if you'd like to be alerted and notified whenever a new episode comes out every week. And of course, we have other videos that drop throughout the week as well. So thank you all so much, and we appreciate your time.